All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rose Legis. I am one of the co-founders and board members of Black Innovation Leaders of Florida. I want to welcome you all and thank you again for joining us this Saturday morning to have a discussion on a very important, critical topic that we believe is essential for us to talk about. Before we start with the panel, I definitely want to introduce the organization and just give you some information on who we are. Can you guys see my slides? Okay. All right. Again, we are Black Innovation Leaders of Florida. Our mission is to unite, provide access, education, advocacy, technical support to Florida organizations and leaders with a focus on elevating innovation in the Black community. Participating organizations and leaders are committed to ensuring engagement and initiatives supporting innovation within the Black community, align with addressing needs to push equity, wealth, and opportunities. We started about 4 years ago. It was a collection of different, again, organizations and leaders within the state of Florida. And we just identified a need for us to work collectively and not in silos when it comes to creating programming, opportunities, solutions for our communities when it comes to innovation and truly growing those communities and pushing them forward. Again, aligning with the Florida Black Innovation Ecosystem for Success is our goal. And non-Black and Black supporters both can align by agreeing to meet the needs as outlined and measure their progress towards helping to advance the Black community. Here is a list of some of our founding leaders and supporters, some who you've probably heard of before or know of from the different works that they've done within the, not just the state of Florida, but also nationally. But, want to give recognition to them. Again, aligning with the Florida Black Innovation Ecosystem for Success, our initial and current focus are on 5 pillars. Those 5 pillars are public policy, procurement, talent, education, and capital. Now we'll go into a video to show, give a recap of the work that we've done last year in 2023. Okay. We have a lot of things in store that we'll share more about toward at the end of this webinar. We do have a Orlando tour stop that we will be having next Saturday at the Tech Hub for those who are local or who are near and would love to drive in and participate and join us. It will be a great session that we're focused on AI. We have panels on AI, uh, art of pitching, intellectual property, and SBIRs and STTRs. So definitely feel we welcome you guys to join us, and we'll provide more information, including the registration link, again in the chat, and go over more into it at the end of the webinar. I'll go ahead and turn this over to one of our board members and founding members, Servola Frazier, CEO of Motivate Enterprises.
Well, hello, everyone. And I am so excited to be here with everyone on this beautiful Saturday. It is just a wonderful day. I mean, we are definitely, there's so much going on in our world today, right? For those of you who are in the Eastern corridor of these United States, we are sending prayers and thoughts to those who were affected recently by Hurricane Helene. And we know the type of stress and mental challenges that can bring to individuals and a community as a whole. I remember getting my mom sharing with me a video, or not a video, but a picture of Asheville, North Carolina. My brother actually went to college there. And so, we're definitely sending prayers to that community that was affected by the storm and flooding and just so many different things that are going on. And on top of hurricanes and natural disasters, we have all these things happening in our political climate. And we're experiencing this continuous challenge to really just embrace and prioritize our mental health, and to really develop strategies to navigate the workplace and beyond with resiliency and strength as we continue to move forward. So this particular event features panelists from distinguished panelists from the mental health community and from our HR community. And they're here to provide some insights and some strategies to help us to be able to maintain our well-being and thriving amidst this political uncertainty. And so we're going to hop into the discussion, but I know that many of you that are joining us, you're going to have questions. So I'm going to ask you to please put those in the chat, and I will navigate into those questions as we're going through our time together. I think it's so important for us to have safe places like this, right? Safe places where we can come together, we can get the resources that we need so that we can move forward from there, go out to life and do life, right? And do it well. So I'm excited to have with me today two distinguished guests, and they are Dr. Oz and Dr. Shanae. And so what I want to do is I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Shanae, ladies first, to get us started, to introduce herself to you all and some of the phenomenal work that she is doing now in our communities. And then right in tandem, we're going to go straight to Dr. Oz, and then we'll come back to me and I'll have our first question for today.
Greetings, everyone. I'll do my best to be brief. Dr. Shanae at the Collective Wellness Institute, where I'm the CEO and the chief clinician. We are excited to support our community in this way today. So thank you so much for having us. I am a licensed practitioner, which means I provide mental health services directly here in our private practice. In addition to that, I'm a educator, which means I train clinicians, I train other clinicians to do this work and do this work well. So our agency stands on three focus. One, to create safe spaces for our clients. Two, to support our colleagues and equip them with support services. And three, our community. We want to continue to help to deliver hope to our community. And we do that in a variety of ways, including showing up in spaces like this and supporting them directly in their organizations with innovative mental health strategies. That's my brief introduction so that I can turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Oz.
Thank you, Dr. Shanae. You know, that's a hard act to follow, just saying. My name is Dr. Osra Dunlap. I am a senior human resource advisor. I'm also an executive consultant and a business analyst. I specialize in helping African Americans and minority professionals with their career pathing and mental health concerns. Um, I've been in this field, in this line of work for a number of years. I have 25 years of management, and I published a dissertation on the racial and social barriers that African American leaders face while trying to achieve some of those senior and executive roles in the workforce. Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, y'all can already tell that we've got some wonderful panelists that are going to share with us. And so I don't want to hold us back from the conversation. You know, when we start to think about political turbulence in this day and age, where things have really drastically changed, I think, you know, I can think about to 10 years ago, maybe not even 10 years ago, maybe about 15 years ago in my young life, when we would think about politics differently than what we think about it now, right? And the stress of politics didn't seem to really linger over into our workspaces as much as it kind of does now. And so when we start to think about political turbulence from a mental health perspective and some of the unique stressors that are associated with, you know, Dr. Shanae, what would you define it as? Would define political turbulence as from your perspective? And then I'm going to follow that up with Dr. Oz. What are some of the unique stressors that are associated with that?
I'm going to do my best to be succinct and clear. So turbulence of any kind, right, is a experience of things being unsteady, a experience of things being conflictual, confusion, uncomfortable, disruptive. It's interesting. I just came back from an international trip and I understand turbulence from that space, right? The air, there's something in the air that disrupts our journey from being smooth. And so when we talk about political turbulence, what that is uncertainty. That's specifically the clearest way I can get this expressed is it's the uncertainty of what we're going to experience because now our country is up for new leadership potentially, right? And all that encompasses. Now it's gotten interesting over the last couple of elections, last four maybe elections, because the characteristics of the individuals who have positioned themselves for leadership have become more decorated. Yeah, I think I like that word. I'm very careful about how I address political matters, right?
Yes.
I serve people on the entire spectrum of policy. So, with that being said, the uncertainty of not knowing where we're going to go, what's going to happen, how things are going to change for us, and then the other aspect of it is we used to just not talk about politics openly, right? Like you do you blue, you red, you do you, and that was that. But now we're in a space in our society where we feel like we have to tell all the stuff. We need to say what's on our mind. We need to be heard and we need to be understood and we need to be valued and respected. And that has created some tension because now we're learning that maybe the people that we share space with are not as alike. We're not as alike as we thought we were. So I'm going to leave it there
Yeah,
for
I
now.
was just gonna say, I think that's a great place to transition it over to Dr. Oz to really start talking about those stressors that this really brings, right? We recognize, hey, things are not the same. Like I mean, we had a golden rule at work that we wouldn't talk about politics when I used to work for the government, right? You just don't talk about politics. But I began to notice in the last, I would say 10 years, as you said, Dr. Shanae, that things just kind of shifted where there's like this emergence of this bold and radical behavior that we see happening And where it used to be only acceptable outside of work, it seemed like it just started to flow into work. So Dr. Oz, share with us some of those stressors that this type of turbulence or this uncertainty, as Dr. Shanae has, eloquently stated for us, the types of stressors that this causes people in the workplace.
Well, I gotta first of all piggyback on what Dr. Shanae said. Anytime you hear the word turbulence, is normally not a good thing, especially if you're in the air on an airplane.
Yeah.
But right now in our political environment, what we are seeing is a heightened state of identity politics, identity awareness. We are seeing people who want to plant their flag to say, I am this and you are that. We're seeing the mass labeling and profiling of individuals. And again, it used to be, there was moderate, very limited discussion on who I am, what I believe, what I think. You may know at one point in our society, you may know the church I go to, but that's pretty much it now. The gloves are off. We are seeing the most uh, horrible exposure of identity politics and the stresses. The stresses is that we're seeing the uncertainty give rise to the bigotry, the violence. I mean, I'm not an old man, but I'm not a young guy as well, neither. But we've seen a president, an attempted assassination twice in less than a month or so. The violence now, uh, tackled with the rhetoric that's out there in society, is creating a very hostile and aggressive approach to our political landscape. And what's happening is that so much of this content is being fed 24 hours a day that people are eating it nonstop. They are digesting this information and they are taking it with them. It used to be a point, I know I remember this, when TV went off and you hear the Star Spangled Banner and you turn off the TV and
Yes.
you go to bed, right? It's not like that anymore. We are getting news 24 hours and it's having an impact on our mental health. So now we go to our workforce, and after watching news channels for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, people are bringing those behaviors, those beliefs, those systemic values to the job. And what they want to do, in a lot of sense, as far as the identity go, they want to put up the stickers. They want to wear certain colors. They want to wear certain types of hat to identify that they align with a certain train of thought, and it is creating a very, not necessarily aggressive, but also hostile work environment.
I love that you brought that up. And there were some key things. I was trying to take notes as quickly as I could while you're sharing this out, because you talked about, how back in the day, and I remember this. I remember that that TV went off at a certain time and the Star Spangled Banner, I clearly remember that coming up, right? And now we're at this phase where we get 24-hour access to information, whether it's on the World Wide Web, whether it's on your television, no matter where it is, you're constantly getting, we have news channels that roll in a 24-hour cycle. They're just constantly pushing out information. And so because we're so much on what I would maybe classify as information overload, we've kind of overloaded our mental processors from being able to even take a break away from and be able to actually utilize our ability to critically think about the information that we're hearing. And so I want to drive it to something that you said, Dr. Oz, and bring up Dr. Shanae to this conversation too. Safety, right? People, when you started sharing that, I remember thinking about how some people start to feel very unsafe in their work environments during this type of a political climate, where it just doesn't always feel safe at work, because everybody's coming in and they're like, oh, it almost seems like people are being radicalized because of this dynamic influence of this. And so I'm just wondering, how can we create these safe places? Because it's not just we're all living in this, right? And we're all dealing with this. So how can we as an individual from your perspective, Dr. Shanae, and then from your perspective, Dr. Oz, organizations. How can organizations create a more safe place for their people to come to work? Like, I don't want to go to a place, well, I don't even want to, I'm a business owner now. And so I don't even want to have a place where my people come to work where they don't feel safe to be there because they're concerned about whether they're going to be okay. Dr. Shanae.
So I think your question to me is around individual level safety
Yes.
as it pertains to this. And before I answer that, I also want to piggyback on the news component. In addition to the continuous access to news, we also have targeted fake news. And we have to be very, very mindful about that. We have intentional efforts to incite and radicalize various topics that's happening. Technology at its best has been great and not so wonderful. The biggest strategy that I recommend in terms of creating safety is getting clear about what is okay for you, what's not okay for you, establishing boundaries so other people are clear about what is okay and not okay, and asking for what you need, right? So um, you can have a conversation about whatever you want to have a conversation with, but you don't get to pull me into it if I don't want to be in that conversation, right? I don't have to agree with everything that you believe, but we do need to respect each other. And so uh, those are areas where boundaries are really important. The biggest, the the most essential concept I want to leave today, and you'll probably hear me say it repeatedly, is that we as individuals need to develop, we need to strengthen our distress tolerance. I'm of the opinion that all of the conflict, all of the tension, the violence, all of the things that is characterized in the term turbulence is birthed out of low distress tolerance, right? So yes, we're being more forthcoming, we're sharing, we're disclosing, we're probably over disclosing. And what that does is it highlights who you are, who I am, and what we're not together. And now that creates discomfort. And so being able to be in a space with someone else who doesn't think and believe and talk like you and not feel threatened is a variable of distress tolerance. And we need to be able to increase our distress tolerance if we're going to navigate through a turbulent climate.
So I just, yeah, before we go over Dr. Oz, I gotta just dissect this just a little bit more, just kind of pull this apart a little bit, because I love what you said about we've got to strengthen our ability to or we have to strengthen our distress tolerance. And I think when we start to think about that, as a Black woman, right, being in this space and living just in my everyday life, there's all these different things where I feel like I'm already being patient. I'm already tolerating a lot, right? And I'm sure there's some people that are listening to this right now that are like, how much more am I supposed to, shoulder?
I love that.
And
And
you're
I
telling
got
me
you.
like I don't have to be superwoman, or I don't have to be a superhero, but listen, it's tough out here in these streets, and it is hard for me to keep shouldering just my own internal, and then I got to shoulder the world too. Like,
Uh-huh.
how do we balance that?
So I'm glad you asked that. That's so important. I don't want to confuse the idea that we should develop distress tolerance to me that we should accept whatever's thrown our way. That's not what I'm saying. There's a
Okay.
term called fierce self-compassion. And self-compassion on the soft side is recognizing you're human, being nurturing and caring and supportive. The fierce aspect of it, I wish I had my graphic nearby. The fierce component, I will upload it to wherever this gets posted. I will post the image. The fierce part of it is asking, remember I said, get clear about what you need and ask for what you, establish boundaries, ask for what you want. Self-advocate, increase your interpersonal skills, increase your negotiation skills, increase your communication skills, right? It does, those things do not mean sit and shoulder whatever's being tossed our way. As marginalized people, historically, we have been taught to put up and shut up, bear and grin, just keep it, just stuff it and keep on moving. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about integrating awareness about what's going on with you, what you need to be able to be well, and then going after that. And in order to go after something you don't have, you do need to sharpen your distress tolerance, because everyone's not going to like what you're asking for. And sometimes you have to be able to endure negative things, uncomfortable things to get through the doors that you need to get through. So it's not accepting whatever's being tossed your way, but it is being able to recognize, just because we don't see eye to eye does not mean I can't get what I need.
I love that. So what I hear you saying is, I ain't gotta take all your junk. I don't have to accept it as my own and carry it around, and feel weighted down by it. If, a colleague said to me one time that trauma is like having a bag of rocks. And what I hear you saying is, I don't have to let you keep adding to the weight of my bag of rocks. Like, I may got 5, and I may have a huge bag, but I only got 5 rocks. But if you keep loading me down, I have 100 rocks, and they don't even belong to me. They belong to you, right?
Absolutely.
And so I can hear what you say. I can understand what you say. And I can also disagree with you say without having the baggage and the weight of that on you. And so, Dr. Oz, I really want to turn it to you, because like, when we start to think about how we can handle this from an organizational perspective, like, how are we supposed to even deal with this and really create a safe place for knowing that people are bringing this with them to work?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Shanae for that alley-oop, because I'm about to slam this one home.
Okay,
You talk about organization. Let's talk about our society.
come on, bring it in.
We live in a society that has not ever cared about the feelings, the emotions, and the experience of Black people. And we can't be afraid to say that, because our organizations have been reflections of our society. So what we have been dealing with outside of work is only the parent of what we deal with in the job place, in the workforce. So first and foremost, if we're going to address this, we have to address that just now in the most recent 5 to 10 years, have Black feelings in the workforce been a conversation? And let's not also forget that African American psychologists only make up of what, 3 to 4% of, if that, of mental health professionals. So within our organizations, we have to first understand the fact that what we're complaining about is often to the people that we're complaining to. So if we don't realize that we have to deal with a double whammy of systemic non-tolerance, of systemic devaluing of our emotions as Black men and Black women, or brown men and women, because I also include our Hispanic family in there as well. We have to understand that in organizations, sometimes the organization leans in the direction that we're fighting against. We also have to ask our organizations to make sure that we do have a safe space, because we have to make sure that our organization put out and promote the communication that first and foremost, This is going to be a place of business. This is not going to be a semi-political compound wherein the politics is going to be allowed to thrive, wherein we know that within the mass media, there is always a vilification and criminalization of Black and brown people. So at the end of the day, most of our organizations are led by primarily white leadership who have in the past had issues with listening to our needs, our concerns, our feelings, our pains. One of my most recent experiences was with George Floyd. I was with the organization that, with all the marching and the protests and the rioting, it was business as usual. It wasn't even an acknowledgement. It wasn't even a conversation. And that was a reflection that we're going to even deny that this is happening in the outside world. And we expect our African American employees to come to work, put on a game face, and go forward. Well, luckily, we did have a CEO that released a statement that said, hey, you know what? We see what's going on. We want our African American and our Hispanic American employees to know that this is a safe place. We can have a conversation. So I think first and foremost in the organization, we have to make sure that there are policies that protect the people that work there. There are support and safe spaces. And then there is also a wellness atmosphere that allows people to speak openly whenever they're having too much and they need a break, or they need to use a day off, or the PTO and things of that nature, to, as my sister said, to have a moment to distress.
All right, so y'all got me taking so many notes. This is just too much for me right now. But this in a good way, because one of the things I want to extract from what you were sharing, Dr. Oz, was that I think we have this assumption that in the workplace, just because someone is in a particular level of leadership, that they somehow have the skills or the understanding or the know-how to navigate these types of situations. And so let's talk to that a little bit, because I do remember during the George Floyd incident, murder, not say incident, murder. I do remember that there were several CEOs and even a few of our clients that reached out and were like, we don't know how to respond. Like, we know we should respond, but we don't know how to respond. Because we don't look like you, right? We're white, and so we look like the people that have caused the harm. And so how do we say not all of us are the same? Number one, right? That you have allyship with us, but how do I also, as a CEO or C-suite executive, navigate the uncomfortableness of the conversation successfully enough to be able to extract what's necessary to help the people, right? To help my employees. And so when we start to think about this, what are some of those things? Because, we live in a very diverse society, right? It's not all Black, it's not all white, it's not all brown, it's not all, Asian. We live in a very diverse society. And so when you are in a level of leadership, we have to be able to lean on people for resources to help us to navigate, those types of disruptions and those types of challenges. The world was disrupted during the situation with George Floyd, that murder. And because of the world's disruption, it brought a challenge to the workplace. Employers did not know how to respond because, as you said, people were coming to work, but they still were disrupted. Their mental state was disrupted, but they didn't know how to have those uncomfortable conversations. What we call in our business, culture conversations, to bring awareness, but also to help the community, our workforce community, understand how to navigate that. So let's talk to senior execs for a moment, Dr. Oz, and let's kind of equip them with some tools to help them navigate.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that's a very important question, because too often in organizations, there has been an assumption that the people who we work for are the most authorized party to speak to us about certain subjects or speak for us. And I think what that has done, that has led leadership in the belief of just because I'm your manager or senior executive, I know what you're going through. And that's absolutely false. You don't know my pain as a Black man unless you are a Black man or Black woman. And let's understand, we can have empathy, but empathy doesn't mean you've had the same experience. So we have to be clear. Our organizations need to make sure that we have diverse professionals like Dr. Shanae who can come in and sit down and lead a workshop and lead a great conversation to speak to them. And they also get training. We're in a different environment. If you look at the history of corporate America basically born out of the philosophy and the ideas that practically built the military. So again, where is the feelings? Where are the thoughts? Where are the emotion centeredness and the emotional awareness that leaders are receiving to help navigate these sort of turbulent times? The best that I've seen is that most organizations just say, hey, we're not going to deal with it. We're just going to say, hey, business as usual, and do your best. If you have sick days, you take a sick day, or you have the paid time off, you take your paid time off, and you deal with it on your time. But that's not the case now. With the internet, people are talking, people are sharing information, colleagues are texting, they're sending links. So I think the best thing for leadership to do is to make sure the organization have access to people in the mental health field and in the mental health space that can help them train, be educated, and navigate these sort of times so that they can be a better asset to their employees.
You know, I think about this, Dr. Shanae, and I think about that this has been going on for a while. Like, this is stuff that's been brewing underneath the surface for a while. And so I'm wondering, how can we, long term, right? I remember back in, I think it was 2000, and I want to say between 2016 2018, where the political climate was changing. It was coming a bit more disruptive, a bit more, personal attacky ish, and things were starting to surface. And we weren't just talking about politics. We were seeing all these other radical things come to the forefront. And I remember having a conversation with another colleague, and she was saying she was doing a research on radicalization, political radicalization in the workplace and different things like that. And she made mention that, hey, we can't sustain this type of disruption for a long period of time without it causing some type of an effect on our mental health. As a society, from what Dr. Oz was just saying, we can't. From an organizational perspective, we can't. And from an individual perspective, we know that we can't. So what are some things that we can do to just, as an individual or even as a family, right? Because we have family units here, navigate that? What are some long-term, maybe they're short-term things, but they have long-term results that we can really start to do when this political turbulence seems to be a part of our is constantly a part of our life. I don't think that I think we're moving in the right direction of it becoming more aware. People become more aware that this is just too much. We need to shift the temperature. We need to tone it down some. But the effects of it are still out there. So how do we navigate? How do we start to just do little things to help us to move past that?
There's a lot of thoughts that come through my mind, and I'm again gonna start back at where Dr. Oz left off, because there's a concept that I think is really important for leadership to embrace, and it's the term called cultural humility. This idea that we all can become culturally competent, really, in my opinion, is not attainable, because culture is ever changing. But in any environment where you have to do life with people who are diverse, maintaining a posture of humility, which means you're always learning, right? You're even amongst us right here, we may share pigmentation, but that does not mean we share value systems. It does not mean we share socioeconomic status and a host of other things. So maintaining a posture of humility, trying to understand, right? Trying to being intentional not to do harm, right? You may not know what to do, but working to not do additional harm. And interestingly enough, avoidance does further harm. So we need to make that very clear. And I also want to highlight, and I'm not going to forget your question, but I also want to highlight, while we have made reference to George Floyd, that was the pandemic. Families were disrupted in ways they had never imagined in their lives. It was not just George Floyd, it was a series of continual lives being taken at the hands of people we have put in public positions. And there, I think there was a great portion of our population that simply became paralyzed with all of that chaotic activity happening. I really do. And so I think recognizing it starts at the individual level. Everything starts at the individual level. You want a healthy family, you need a healthy mom, you need a healthy dad. You want a healthy community, you need a healthy family. You want a healthy organization, you need healthy workforce, right? You need healthy leadership. And so with the small step that leads to long-term wellness or restoration is a commitment to personally be healthy. And part of being personally healthy is recognizing that you don't have the answers. Leadership has to be able to admit that I do not know what to do. And so let's come together and figure out what works for this unit, right? We all represent different organizations. What works in one organization may not work in another. My team is run like a family. We can sit down, have a powwow, have some subs and get clear and then get on the move. But there may be another organization that's larger than that, and it's just the change doesn't happen that easily, right? So starting at the individual level of what do I need? What don't I know? What do I need to know? Who do I need to rally as support? And then that needs to grow. That needs to magnify. So we do it in an individual setting, like in our household, we have family meetings. Where are you going? What do you need? How do we help you? What do you need prayer for? Right? In our teams, we do the same thing. And in communities, we can do the same thing. There's stakeholder meetings, there are ERGs, employee resource groups. If organizations don't have employee resource groups, that's one of the first places they can start, because now you do not own the responsibility of being the solution for something you don't even understand. So it starts at the individual level, recognizing if you're okay, if you're not okay, what do you need? The other thing, and this may not be very popular amongst some, but I'm going to say it because I believe it's important. We have to learn how to not ignore the impact that the trauma that we all recognize has had on us. There are times when the lenses of trauma actually taint our interpretation and complicate our behavior, and therefore interferes with our ability to be heard, to be respected, to join, to have influence. We have to take personal responsibility for how we manage ourselves because we have had traumatic experiences, so that the trauma response is not leading. which means we have to be well.
I love that, because what I'm hearing you say, I mean, you hit on, y'all better, take these nuggets, okay? Because they are dropping some gems here. What I hear you saying is that 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 impact of trauma, that's, to me, that I group that in a little bit with the culture of humility that you started the conversation with. And having this, because that humility is, I'm taking back what I see and what I think, and I'm willing to have a lens of empathy, and not, I tell people, we shouldn't be pathetic, we have to be empathetic, right? And so having that empathetic lens helps us to have a certain level of humility from a cultural perspective as it relates to others. And I like the point that you made about, let's be intentional about no further harm, no more harm. Because I think that also brings in, if I understand the impact of the trauma has had on me, and if I lead my life with this lens that I will do no further harm or do no harm, then that puts me in the space of empathy and humility, where that's leading, leading my actions and my behaviors versus, the anger or the frustration or the irritation of what I'm experiencing on a consistent basis. So I feel like that really helps us to kind of elevate that. And you brought out something that I want to bring out, and I saw it in the comments that, you said, we got to have these family meetings, these team meetings, these community meetings, and I've sat in several of all of the above, right? Community meetings where we've had to have conversation about lowering the temperature around some of the different challenges that the community experiencing. Family meetings to really have these conversations about the vision of our family. And a good friend, Dr. White, talks about dynastic wealth and the power of vision for your wealth and so on. And so those family meetings kind of tie into that, and team meetings. As we start to think about team meetings and within your organization, you brought up ERGs. And I think that those, employee, relationship groups are necessary for organizations to be able to have. I also feel like there are some tools there that can leverage, like we can leverage those tools to help us to really navigate where we should be going in the work that we're doing. So as we start to think about this, building resiliency, and I feel like these are like pieces that tie to resiliency, like the culture of humility, the self-compassion that we talked about earlier, these us being able to identify in so many different spaces, and really be able to, what was it that you said, have that strengthen our distress tolerance. All of these things to me kind of collide into this understanding of building out resiliency. And so, Dr. Oz, I'm going to kick it to you to talk about the power of that, of really trying to really understand. Like, we hear people talk about resiliency. We hear people talk about, you got to be more resilient. We see all these books and all these things coming out saying, this thing, and as a culture, we feel like we champion resiliency because of our struggle and our plight as people of color. But talk about the impacts and the power of resiliency in our society today, not just in our workplaces, but in our society today, and how important resiliency is for us to continue to build out.
That's a great point. I want to touch on something really fast that you mentioned and Dr. Shanae mentioned: cultural humility. One of the reasons why we're in such a political turbulence right now is because what we are seeing is the exact opposite of cultural humility. And there was a time where politics had, a little more class, wherein the racism wasn't as blatant, or the socioeconomic aggression wasn't as blatant as we see now. And I think that that's one of the problems that's creating such aggressive and mental health stressing environment. And to the family, you know, we're actually seeing the attack on the family in politics openly. So I think a lot of the things that we are dealing with, we have no choice to but be resilient. But resilient now is a little different because upon any people that's in this country, we have proven our mettle when it comes to being resilient. 400 years of being in this country, being attacked, raped, murdered, systemically oppressed, and we still stand. Well, why is that? We stand because we first identify the focus and the need of our people. Resilient comes at the price of a purpose. And what Dr. Shanae is saying is absolutely on point. It starts at the individual level, but within that individual, there has to be a focus on purpose. Because if you lose your personal purpose, then you're going to fall into the direction that's being put out there for us. And this is what's driving the mental health stress. I think I read a statistic by the National Institute of Mental Health that said 46% of white professionals are going to seek mental health treatment at some point in their career. 46%. Wherein most of our community do not have access to mental health resources. So I think what we have to look at when it comes to resilient is we have to go back to what works for us. And one of the things that work for us is the fact that it starts with the individual, it starts in the family, it starts within the home, and that starts within our community. And let's be clear. We're one of the few groups in the country. We're one of the few ethnicities in the country that has been attacked. Whenever we try to build a strong framework within our community to support the problems and deal with the problems ourselves. See, this is a challenge to systemic oppression. When you want to fix your own problems, that goes against the agenda that's against us. We have to now make sure that we strengthen the bonds when it comes to our professional associations, our Black innovations. We have to make sure that right now we are addressing the needs of our problems and not letting anyone else falsely represent us. Man, there's a great speech in the 60s that Malcolm X done called The Ballad of the Bullet, where he talked about the political landscape. The same thing that he addressed then, we are dealing with today. They kiss our babies. And then here's another thing to that point. When did we hear African Americans addressed as a voting population this year? We just heard us being spoken about when it comes to the ballot only a couple months ago. Well, we've been here the entire 4 years of President Biden's candidacy. And it's not against the left or the right, but it just speaks to our value within a system that seeks to control and not help. I think it's very important that if we're going to be resilient, we have to own the problems within our community. We have to own the challenges that we're up against, and we have to employ our local professionals, our Dr. Shanae's, so that we can make sure that the people who know us, the people that love us, the people that have a heart for us, is willing to help us. And we have to be open to that. You know, when we deal with our people, we have to also address the fact that some of us, there's a population who believe that we can't get help from our own people. And that is a crippling ideology to think that no one can help us unless they're on the other side of the race fence. This has to stop because, as we have seen in this country, the only way that we've moved forward as a community was together. And to speak to the organization aspect, let's look back in the 60s. And this is why our history and the teaching of our history to our children is so important, because civil rights was born out of the bus boycotts. We had to come together to stand, and it impacted our jobs. Now, this wasn't comfortable. It's not comfortable now to ever threaten your paycheck. But when you look at the price of not standing resiliently, then there's a greater debt to pay. Resilience is born out of making sure that we communicate the goals, the purpose, and let's not forget that we have stood resilient through all the political turbulence of this country, of this nation, and society.
Man, that's a drop the mic moment, Dr. Oz. Because when we think about our history, we cannot ourselves undervalue the power of our history and the power of this legacy that we have as a people. Dr. Shanae, I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to let you hop in because I saw your head shaking the whole time Dr. Oz was going. So I'm going to kick it to you. I'll throw another question back in there in a minute, but I'm going to kick it to you because I already saw your thoughts were rolling. Go ahead, share out. You're muted right now.
It's there's so much, right? There's so much. But I think it's so powerful. Here we are in Florida, and our history is not being taught. And so in a formal public education setting. And I think this is an opportunity for us to recognize our power. When you have been victimized, it is easy to get trapped in a space of entitlement. And this is where we lose the battle. We have to be able to reclaim our intrinsic power and our collective power. And it's through that we can see change. As Dr. Oz said, this is how we have navigated every turbulent political season we've ever experienced in this country. We've done it in a collective manner. We don't always see eye to eye. We had different sects or whatever the case may be, right? And that's, hey, it's okay, because different is okay. Different is necessary to be able to get to new things, innovative solutions. But we've got to learn how to tap into our internal power, When I was listening to Dr. Oz, I was reminded about the match between Serena and Osaka, where Serena lost. It was devastating. I think it was 2018. I don't know how many of you all remember that. And I distinctly remember saying to myself, she did not have to lose. Not that Osaka didn't do a good job, but in my professional opinion, the reason why Serena lost because she lost internally because she focused too much on the injustices that were happening at the time and not who she was, what she brought to the table, what she had the power to do. And she lost that battle. This is a classic visual that happens in our communities on a regular basis. We have got to realize that we have an internal power and a collective power. It does not matter who gets in office. It does not matter what policy they put in place. We have been surviving since the beginning of the days when the slave ships came, and we will continue to do so. How well we do it will depend on how well we reclaim our internal intrinsic power. Resilience is the survival skill that has gotten us this far. Resilience is what helped us turn scraps into delicacies. Now people are paying crazy money for the stuff that they threw at us years ago to eat. So, I mean, I could go down the rabbit hole of that. But listening to that, we've got to be able to, that's the distress tolerance, reset internally regroup what we are coming here to do, what our vision is, what our mission is, what our position is. Get rid of the internal distrust that we have within the community. We continue to have distrust amongst ourselves. Stop gatekeeping, right? We share information, collaborate, partner, join forces. Say, I don't know, so that your brother or sister who does know can grab you and attach you. Take a subprime contract. You don't have to be the prime, be the sub. Learn, right? There are tangible things that we can do to be able to move and pick up power and pick up wealth along the way. My faith says the wealth of the wicked is laid up. Okay? And I believe it, and I'm coming for it. So that's what I'm a back up.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Man, there's so much here. There's so much here, y'all. And you know, I just want to push some things back out there because you hit on a lot of key things. You know, one of the things that really rose to the top while both of you all were saying in talking about resiliency is that resilience is not just for surviving, but it is surviving and thriving. And Dr. Oz, you brought this out because you said, hey, we're not a stranger to being resilient. We've done this. Like, this is a part, like, whether we understood it or not, this is a part of who we are, and it's been a part of who we are for thousands of generations. We've had 400 years of slavery. We've had to navigate through Jim Crow. We've had to navigate through a civil rights movement and boycotting and all these different things. Now we're in another stage of the same cycle, right? We're in another stage of the same cycle. And so we're not strangers to this territory. We've experienced this before. So now we recognize that we have this ability to not only survive, but to thrive. And every time we bounce back stronger than what we did before. Right. And so as we look at this, we see we see the negative things that have happened in our history, but we also have to be remembering the positive things that have happened in our history. Right. And so there's inventors that are connected to us. There's our creativity. Dr. Oz talked about our ability to be able to bring things to the forefront. Dr. Sinead said, hey, people, they look at what we built and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that. And then they want to monetize it, right? And then it turns into generational wealth. I want to hit back on something that we talked about value. And I think both of you hit on this. Our value does not come from society. You know, we have to place the value on ourselves. And if we don't place the value on ourselves and expect someone else to tell us what our value is, then we're the ones that are going to be disappointed, right? Because if you leave it for somebody else to put value on you, they are going to underestimate you every single time. And so we've got to recognize that. So you said recognize your power, reclaim your power, and then I added to that, reignite your power. Reignite your power. So let's start bringing this full circle. When we start to think about reigniting our power in this, politically turbulent environment, and really stepping forward and really amplifying our voices and amplifying who we are. I want you all to share some key things that really that you want, if you could say to anyone, if you could say to your 2-year-old self, right? Or let me say 5-year-old, so you can use a little bit more language. Your 5-year-old self, or your 10-year-old, or your 16-year-old self, about how to navigate this moment, what would you say? What would you want them to know that you feel that is necessary to make it and to not just survive, but to thrive? Dr. Oz.
Well, I think I will tell that 5-year-old little black boy that no matter what you go through, you are built from greatness. And all the challenges and obstacles that you will face will develop your greatness because you come from a great people and you stand on the shoulders of the most resilient people that has ever walked this planet in ancient and modern history. And I think what also needs to be identified into what you were saying is the fact that that intrinsic value, who's teaching that value now? See, there was a point in our community where our grandmothers and grandfathers and our local leaders and trusted local pastors were helping us develop that moral compass as a people and as a community. Now, the value has been compromised with another agenda. Our goal as a community has to first identify, first and foremost, what is our focus, what is our purpose, and what do we need now? We're going to navigate this landscape because that's what we do. But how we do it and how we approach it has changed. This is not the 60s anymore. This is not the 70s. We're not facing the crack epidemic. We're facing a different type of enemy and a different type of landscape. So I think most importantly, when we talk to the 5-year-olds of the Black and Brown community, we first have to be the voice that they hear. We have to make sure that we educate our youth and our younger generations because we can't trust anyone else to educate our children. And if you look at the public school system, and I'm a product of the public school system, it has been proven that statistically, little black boys and little black girls are first, their self-esteem, their self-image is first attacked in the public school system. And it also has been identified in recent studies that prison, the public school is a pipeline to prison. So we have to understand that education right now, and as you said, we're in Florida, education is being removed. And if we remove the history of our people from our youth, then they're not going to be resilient. They're going to believe what is being compounded to them as messaging. And let's talk a moment about the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is going to store the behaviors, the beliefs, our core values. It's going to, if you keep saying something over and over and over and over and adding those emotional components to it, then it becomes programmed. It don't have to be true. So right now, what we're seeing in this political turbulence is a mass programming to lead us to believe that there's two different systems out there, that there is a left and there is a right. And it is one has our best interests at heart versus the other. The last time I checked, we've all been citizens of the United States, supposedly, and we all face the same type of oppression. It didn't matter who the president was. Right now, we're looking at discussing a very, very, very important point. And the very important point is how, as a community, we take hold of, as Dr. Shanae said, the intrinsic value and come to the forefront to make sure that we are the teachers and leaders, we are the tribal elders, and we are manifesting the goals, the dreams, the visions of our people, and not letting no one else do that for us. Because that has worked in the past, and it didn't get us to the dream that Dr. King had.
Wow. Wow. Y'all, this is so good. All right, Dr. Shanae, I'm gonna let you come right behind. What do you got?
Well, you asked, pardon, I think there's someone doing landscaping outside my door. You asked what I would say to my 5-year-old. So that's what I'm going to do. Um, she would be reminded that she was fearfully and wonderfully made, the daughter of the king, the most high king, who holds the earth in his hands and who requires the water to back up and not overtake the earth when it's doing its thing in the waves. She would be reminded that there's no good thing that would be withheld from her, and that everything that takes place has to work for her good, that she is set in the earth for a purpose, and it's her job to seek out that purpose, seek him who created the purpose, and know that all things would be added into her life should she do what he has purposed her to do. It will all work itself out, but she has to be a part, an active part of the plan according to the design that is set for her life.
Wow. Wow. I'm telling you, you all, this has been such a powerful time because we are living in a world where our young people need to hear that. And if there's something that resonates with me very strongly, and I think should resonate with all of us, is that, Dr. Oz said this: we must be the voice that they hear. We must be the voice that they hear. And so as we start to wrap things up, I mean, this time has went by so fast, and I want to kind of recap some of the things that we've talked about, and just give each one of our speakers today just an opportunity to share, one key thing that that you really want people to walk away with, right? We're in this conversation because we need safe places to have these types of conversations, to uplift each other and to inspire each other. And so I am so very excited to have shared these moments with the two of you, because I feel like we are walking away. I even feel a little lifted, right? I feel a bit more encouraged to keep this fight moving forward. And so as we continue, no matter what the results are in November, right? What is one thing that you want to share with people to help them to posture themselves for beyond November? And I'll start with you, Dr. Shanae.
There's so much. But the affirmation that I spoke to my 5-year-old is an affirmation that I stand on. I do believe that we need to walk forward with one hand in front, which means we're reaching, right? We're reaching for help, we're reaching for connection, and one hand behind, which means we're pulling someone up as well. Our hands outstretched remind us to walk in community, be in community, serve community, see community, right? It's very easy for us to become very I-centered, and it is what keeps us divided, and is what keeps us ineffective and diminishes our power. So I would say move forward with one hand up front, reaching for help, support, one hand behind, supporting and helping. And in that posture, we're balanced.
I love it. Dr. Oz.
There used to be a saying I used to hear as a little boy, this too shall pass. Our community has been built on faith and being connected. And Dr. Shanae, she hit it perfectly on the head. We have to remember that we can be easily led astray when we lose sight of who we are. And if we lose sight to what has gotten us this far. We have gotten this far because when it boils down to it, when the times are tough, we do stick together. we do support each other. We do fight for one another. It may seem like a very painful trope that we don't trust each other, we don't like each other, and all of that. If that was the case, we would not have survived North America. At the end of the day, we are here as a team, as a collective family, because we do trust each other. We do want to support each other. And Dr. Shanae said it correctly. Let's move forward. Let's open our hands to each other, and let's be willing to support and to admit when we do need help. Because right now, our people are going to face a challenge. Every new president poses a different challenge for the Black community. But at the end of the day, we still stand. And we will continue to stand because our destiny is not in the hands of the left or the right. Our destiny is in the hands of a much, much greater power. And we have to always stay in alignment with that power.
I love it. I love it. There's a question in the chat. I want to push it to Dr. Shanae. Is there something that we can do when we feel the pressure rise? A quick exercise. And I feel like your graphic that you shared out with us is like a key tool for us to be able to utilize that. And that is to push. And push simply means prepare, understand, support, and hold. Prepare, understand, support, and hold. So I'm going to ask Dr. Shanae and Dr. Oz to please share in the chat your contact information. I know that we would love to have you all back. This conversation has been truly rich. We started the conversation with Dr. Oz saying specifically that we need to have more of these conversations. And we're ending it with this thought of, man, I'm just craving for more of these types of spaces where we can feel safe and uplift each other and uprich each other so that we can navigate through this chaotic time that we are in and this full of uncertainty time that we are in, and come out on the other side thriving, like Dr. Oz said, we always have. Rose, I'm excited to kick this back over to you to get us closed out for today. But thank all of you for joining us, who've joined us. And I know that as you continue to follow us, you're going to continue to receive rich and valuable content to help to elevate you and to strengthen you to continue to do your work in the communities that you all exist in. Thank you again, Dr. Oz and Dr. Shanae. You all are just jewels, and I'm so excited to have shared the stage with you today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Savola. So thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. Oz, Dr. Shanae, and Coach Savola Frazier, who was our moderator. Thank you so much. I don't know about you guys, but this was a church. This was a mental health therapy session. I even had business coaching in there, HR advice. This was like everything wrapped in one session. I got so much out of it. I hope that you guys did too. Again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, or we'll give you an opportunity to speak out if you need to. But we definitely want to, get your questions in. In the meantime, I want to kind of go over what our organization has in store for the future, what we have next, and also an opportunity to connect with us. This webinar was powered by Black Innovation Leaders of Florida. We are a group of just innovation leaders within the innovation ecosystem in Florida, who basically 4 years ago decided that we need to stop working in silos and work together, because we are better together, and work together to support the other organizations that are doing great things and leveraging our connections, leveraging our assets to be able to provide opportunities, programming, funding, whatever it is, to this community to continue to grow it and also push it forward. Again, let me share my screen. All right, so what we have coming forward is our IP Launchpad series. We actually just finished our 4 sessions with you. We have a partnership with USPTO, uh, uh, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, where we had 4 educational sessions talking about basically the differences between the different services they provide, information on trademark patents, basically protecting your intellectual property and how to go about that. And we're going to be starting up our part 2 of that, which is access to patent hacks training material for over 1,000 businesses in Florida. If you are interested in that, you are part of an organization that wants to tap in, please connect with us. And so that way we can get you connected to our partner organizations who are running those programs through their organizations and orgs. The next thing that we have also is our Orlando tour stop, which will be next week, October the 12th. We will be having a tour in the Tech Hub area. If you are in Orlando, near Orlando, would like to drive and participate with us, we welcome you. That tour, conference will be between 10 and 3, and we will have panels on AI, IP, intellectual property, art of pitching, how to pitch your business or your tech startup, and also individuals talking about SBIR and STTR, which are grant programs for small businesses and who are creating innovative products or technology. And so we want to provide more information on that. So again, here. Okay, so call to action, next meeting, we do have general information meetings about the different things that we'll have. We'll have one for October. So definitely join our email list to get more information on that, and actually also tap into our website. And you can scan this if you want to join our organization. We have different membership levels, or want to just stay in contact with us to just learn more about the different programs that we have. We encourage you to join and just continue on forward with us as we continue to provide support, grants, opportunities through our organizations to the Black innovation community here in Florida. Again, thank you all. Do we have any questions? I want to give space for that. I know we have a couple minutes, but does anybody have any questions? You can come off mute if so. If not, thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you. For those who are going to join us next Saturday, we look forward to seeing you there. And for those who will join us again virtually at our next meeting or event, we look forward to seeing you there. So thank you. And you guys have a good day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.